It's not going to actually get rid of corruption the way media has been projecting it as if this one thing is going to solve all of the corruption issues. We, particularly, what was interesting about this whole campaign was the number of people who jumped in to talk about how they are corrupt. I mean, this idea that others are corrupt is actually a very interesting way of looking at the problem. As if we have not been part of a system which is corrupt, we have not been beneficiaries of a system that is corrupt. So, at various levels, we are all people who have actually benefited from a lot of these kinds of things, right? Like at the RTO office, if you need to get a license, it's sometimes easier to just pay money. Sometimes we don't even pay money directly. We pay money to a licensing agency, which will actually pay the bribe. So I don't pay the bribe. I just give the pay so much. Like what is actually going to cost you 250 rupees, we pay 3,000 rupees. That guy takes his cut, passes on all whatever is required, and finally you get the license. So we have not paid bribes. We have only paid the agency for whatever getting us the license. But of course, we all know that there are also all sorts of issues there, right? Brokerage and all of these are there. Now, it is easy to then talk about a system where by reforming the top level something, the whole system is going to change. I'll give you an example of what I mean by grassroots level corruption issues also. We have been doing this program in several villages to look at education, and there are a lot of school teachers everywhere who are working, but not necessarily working as hard. And we are trying to get people, ordinary people in the village, to assess their children. Many people who can't read, get the list of all the children, make a small list saying, "Dear teacher, you have been doing a good job. You have managed to get so many children to learn subtraction. But we find the following 17 children, names listed down, in the 4th standard, don't know subtraction. We request you to kindly focus on them and this month ensure that they learn subtraction." Now, this is a pressure tactic. Okay. Now, this ensures that the teacher actually starts focusing on the subtraction activity. Now, the teacher is under a lot of pressure, and there is a big problem there because many government school teachers are money lenders and the parents have taken money from the teachers. So, this pressure tactic is also dangerous, okay, from the parents' perspective. But the point is, this is a small level, a very small level, at which we are trying to tackle corruption of one kind, where the teacher taking a salary doesn't come to the school, or comes to the school doesn't teach. Now, this cannot be solved by a Jan Lokpal or a Lokpal bill. This needs to be solved when people start taking responsibility for their local area and pushing for it. Why is my road in my village all the time breaking down? What did you do? How did you actually spend the money? I want to see accounts for it. Show me the accounts for how the road was spent. Is a question that has to be asked locally. It can't be asked at the central level. The more centralized we make some of these systems, and the more expectations are that central systems will solve problems, I think then we are going for something that is very wrong. Actually, the more decentralized systems are, central accountability but decentralized actual execution and powers to actually see whether at local levels things are working or not, I think will be the way to address issues of corruption. India is today at a point where corruption issues are becoming very serious and we are trying to do something about it, and I think this whole campaign and the amount of interest it showed was very good. But the direction it seems to point that there is one single person who is going to solve. It's like saying there is one great prime minister who will basically resolve everything. There will be one great dictator who will basically resolve everything. I think putting our hopes on things like that have not worked in the past and will not work in the future. We have to put our hopes on systems. We have to put our hopes ultimately on everywhere people being aware and everywhere people actually pushing for what is right, locally. There is no shortcut to it. The shortcut saying I will not push for what is right, I will at one point just create something or one person or one group of people who will manage everything and everything will then set right, I think is giving us a foolish dream. And if we keep working towards it, we are then going away from what should actually be done, which is a harder job. Getting every village to start asking questions about what is going on, getting every small ward in, like you say, all the people in Mylapore come together and say why our Mylapore roads are not getting done, how much money was given in Mylapore, what exactly is going on, why was this road not laid, who laid the road, what happened. It's a hard job because people won't come to the meeting. But there is no shortcut. You can't say I will not do this and I'll have a Lokpal which will actually solve this problem. I think we have to recognize that this is the only way to actually solve this problem in the long run and get people to get excited about it. If this whole excitement of this large movement kind of concludes with saying that one Lokpal will solve the problem, I think they are wasting this movement. We had similar movements earlier. We had JB movement, we had a whole bunch of other things where people got excited about the fact that there was change that was coming. And all of those movements then died out because all of those movements actually placed their faith on one or two single changes which would solve the problem. And I think this is also kind of leading to that, and that's my real big worry. So, thank you.
So, address it or it's just a...
Because the whole government may come to a standstill.
I don't think, while there is a directional problem with this, I think our government is not going to let this happen either. I mean, no, there are, because while the whole point is if nobody questioned it, this may happen. But like you were saying, there are quite a few people within the, during the phase when Anna Hazare was on fast, everybody supported, jumped in, and it was like a very strong support this campaign model. But of late I have now been seeing a lot more people who have, in fact, when I wanted to voice my reservation, I felt a little scared about voicing the reservation at one stage. Because everybody was like going to get back and argue how dare you say this. But I have been seeing last several weeks quite a lot of people expressing reservation, which doesn't mean people are saying no Lokpal. They are actually very, and good thing about India has been that we are able to debate. It makes things a little slower, but looking at neighboring countries, I think we have not been doing very badly. The fact that we are a little slow, it goes back, it's a very diverse country with such large population, such huge class differences and a whole bunch of complexities. It's good to debate before we come to a conclusion, and I think this bit is also leading to it. So I'm very happy at one stage that people are taking something like a bill so seriously and debating it, which is actually itself a very positive sign. But to say that this bill must come, nothing else, I think would have been the wrong direction. So I don't think that this bill will come in its form currently. There will be enough opposition to it.
I don't think any political system would want it.
Will want it. I think our parliament is strong enough to oppose it and block it or this thing. I think this pressure is good to make sure the parliament doesn't block the full bill.
No, unfortunately, an impression has been created that anything that the politician says, I mean, the sensible suggestions that you gave, suppose it came from Kapil Sibal, people think it doesn't have the credibility. I'm just saying, I'm just giving a name. When it comes from a politician, somehow there is a feeling that they're all crooks.
There's a ban that
So how do we, I mean, it's not really true. It may be a well thought out concern that like you have the same, what you said can come from the mouth of Kapil Sibal or somebody. After all, he's a legal person. He looks at it from the legal point of view, looks at the pitfalls. But how do we, I think as you said, this is far too important to rush. I mean, if Anna Hazare is a sensible person, I will put it that way also, he should not blackmail the government into the whole thing coming up in the next parliament session or something. We need a wider...
We definitely need a wider consultation. I think that rushing it through it has its big dangers.
If it doesn't come through by August 15, what happens?
No, I think then they just simply ask for extension and one more past it. No, but I think he will also understand that there will be enough people who will put pressure on him from the outside, civil society side. See, I think as long as it was just a debate by between a few people and the government, every time that Lokpal bill would come to the fact that it has come to Parliament 8 times and got stalled, wasn't there in public view. Now it is, and I think that the government realizes. So now they can't delay it forever. But it's important to have wider consultation and to definitely modify some of the clauses.
In camera, can you give your opinion about Shanti Bhushan? I mean, we are all friends.
Like actually, I don't know about Shanti Bhushan. I know, no, I don't have a problem. I don't know about Shanti Bhushan.
It goes to YouTube.
I don't have a problem. So I don't have a opinion about Shanti Bhushan or Prashant Bhushan. I don't know about them fully. I know that they have fought a lot of very important and good cases. I mean, in terms of their legal activity, definitely I think it's worthwhile. And I think that's what should be used, whether they should actually participate or not. It doesn't matter whether they've actually gone. I think we attach too much importance, and that's partly the problem. To people who they are, whether they are Nobel Prize awardees or Magsaysay awardees. I think we should start attaching importance to what they say. Does that make sense or not should be discussed. And I think I would like to argue about whether what Shanti Bhushan or Prashant Bhushan say, rather than who they are and what they have actually done.
Exactly.
It's very hard to figure out.
Actually, Balaji, if, as you say, they are really such great legal brains, how could did they not think of the pitfalls that you have mentioned? I mean,
see, I'll see that. I always think in terms of the fact that our own minds, sometimes like when I have to make decisions, in my own organization, I realized that I do certain things because of something that happened yesterday and day before yesterday. Things that have immediate relevance. Changes the way I perceive things. I need somebody to stop me and say, wait a minute, let's look at the 10-year, 5-year past, and let's look at 3-4 years later what happens. Let us look at when these existing current situations are not there, will the decision you made or will the decision that you push for, is it still relevant or not? Does it make sense or not? There are two kinds of time frames that we live in. Maybe three kinds of time frames. So one which actually is immediate judgments, which is what we generally talk about when people have to make immediate rules, government rules and so on. Then there are things which actually are valid for about a 3, 4, 5 year time frame. And that's where usually parliaments function. Parliaments have a 5-year time frame. I mean, they think 5 years, they can't think beyond that. But constitution needs to think much longer. And that's why we have the constitution. So we have certain things, like for example, today's government may appoint Supreme Court judges. Then the new government comes in, but the Supreme Court judge is the old fellow. And new government passes a law, the Supreme Court judge will say nonsense, out. But if the same government continues for, let us say, like 10-15 years, the Supreme Court judges are all actually in favor of this government and their policies. Then you are actually saying society has a way of making decisions which are 15-year-long decisions, and making decisions which are 4-5-year-long decisions, and making decisions which are like a couple of months long decisions. And we need all three. How we respond or react to immediate things is very tricky. So that's why we need these three levels of things to protect ourselves from ourselves. So today's India's decisions may be wrong, which is why our constitution makers have said, let us not go by what India today is saying. Let us go by what India over the last several years has said. That's why the constitution to me represents India over a 15-20 year period. What Indians and what we think over a 10-15 year period. The parliament today represents what we think over a 4-5 year period. 4-5 years, I think this government is good, this guy can, like so, for example, next we think DMDK should come to power and people vote. Turns out to be a bad decision. It's a 4-5 year mistake that we live and suffer our mistakes that we make. But it's a 4-5 year mistake, it's not a constitutional mistake. But if we make the same mistake 3 times, then you have a constitutional mistake because you're giving them power to change the constitution. And I think those time frames are important. And systems that ensure the time frames maintain their sanctity are also important. The biggest danger I find of the Lokpal Bill's draft is it's actually changing that inequality. It's saying today's people's anger about corruption and political system is influencing, if it influences us so much that we can completely create a system which will stop this 15-year time frame kind of stuff and let this group have power, then we have let today's decisions affect not just today and tomorrow's activities and actions, but let it affect over a 15-year period. And that is a very serious danger to the country. And Pakistan, for example, has done this systematically. They've always let today's contingencies decide their policies for longer. And that, I think, luckily for us, our constitution makers had that sense. And I think today we are actually benefiting from that decision. And I think I'm not so worried about the fact that this bill will come to power. I mean, thanks to this system. I'm just saying that there is no alternative to the fact that we must constantly be aware, constantly keep pushing. And the amount of awareness we have on the Lokpal bill and the amount of discussions we are doing, just the same discussions or similar kind of thing has to be done on every single issue at the local level. That kind of an aware political society or aware kind of socially aware kind of society is what will actually address this issue of corruption in a bigger way.